Alrighty. Hello and welcome. We are live on the Momentum Talk Show here. I am Lindsay and I have with me who I know as Oz. Say hello.
Hi everyone, my name is Osvaldo Gaytan and I go by Oz.
Fantastic. Fantastico. Very excited to have you, actually thrilled to have you here today. We have some fantastic topics that we have discussed and we will elaborate on during our show today. For those of you tuning in, feel free to add some comments. We would love to answer any questions as we catch them. I will begin by sharing with you what the Momentum Talk Show is. It was a complete download and I share this every time. It's just for people to know what a download is. It was a message that I received that said, "Hey, Lindsay, you're going to start a talk show." And I said, "Great. What's it going to be called?" And they said, "The Momentum Talk Show." And I said, "Okay, wonderful. I'm happy to do that." And this was over a year ago, early, just prior to COVID starting in 2020. And I said, "What does momentum stand for?" And momentum, that was another message I received in quiet time. And it said, "Monumental opportunity manifesting extraordinary new times upon man and womankind." And since then, I've interviewed lots of different people and heard their insights. And this is actually the first real diversity talk we have really talked about on the show. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I will just say, take it away, Oz. Tell us a little bit about you and how you'd like to get started today.
Well, thank you, Lindsay, for interviewing me. This is a pleasure of mine to be here with your audience. Who I am? Well, I'm a Hispanic, Latino, actually. I don't like the word Hispanic, but I personally call myself Latino. I'm from Mexico. I've been in the US for the last 22 years. I work in sales and I love music. I'm a passionate of music, passionate of romanticism, probably I will say, philosophy. I'm a deep person that that's why I'm respectful of others, other thoughts. I'm open to listen to other thoughts and open to learn. So, which is what I believe I came to this world to learn and to share.
Wonderful. Thank you. So let's begin with the challenges that Hispanics have coming into this country. That was kind of how our conversation got started today.
Well, I will say that this is in general, it's not what happens to everyone, but for most of them is first of all, the language. Language is a difficulty to start. Other one is cultural, culture is different. You come across into, once you cross the border from everywhere you come from, maybe you come from plane, from anywhere, just the language by itself is different. And if you speak more than two languages, you will understand that certain words will not be the same in the other language and will not mean the same thing. So that automatically there is a like really a shock on your brain and saying, "Oh, I'm trying to say this, but it's not getting into my across. It's not getting to the other person my message." So that's the biggest concern. And I will say that the challenges of finding a job that fits you, but most of us believe that as long as we have a job, especially if it comes to people who comes from a third world country, such as Mexico and South America, then they will try to find something in their line of business. But if they don't speak English, or if they do, then it's difficult for them, because even though you have to adapt to a different system.
Right. I love what you're saying here. And since we may talk about feelings moving forward, I'm curious, and I'm speaking from experience, and even in movies, you see this where people will try to express themselves in a second language and they're just unable to find the words to express themselves. And I'm curious if you've ever had a situation like that where you're thinking, like, I just want to get these emotions out and I can't do it because I have to translate first and express myself with words that really aren't sometimes even as passionate or as expressive or even capture the feeling of what you're trying to express. And usually people will switch back into their home language or their native language and just, okay, now I feel good.
Yes, I have had that many times, trying to express those feelings out to people you love, or even friends, or if like you, it's a really weird combination to understand that. Because example, one of them, it's like, "I love you," But if you translate that is in Spanish, the translation is te amo. But also, if you want to say it te quiero, there is no such a. It's kind of like I like you, but I like you is not the same as in Spanish, because I
Yes.
like you is kind of like I think you're a good person, but I really don't know you yet. I mean, I think I like you, just and te quiero, it's like that doesn't mean that you have a feeling for that person on the romantic way. It's that you like that person. It's like a feeling like you might have for a brother, you know,
Oh,
and that it's a different definition for some people, for some of us, that it's kind of hard to say that, and you cannot say you cannot say to everyone I love you, because then
right.
will misunderstand or will misunderstand you with
Mhm.
that. So
Thank you for explaining that. I think there's a lot of people that would love to know how that works, because we don't have those words in English. We not exactly like encantar. We don't have that like fascinar. Like I guess we do, but those are a little bit different as well. And I think especially people that are in multicultural, I don't know if bicultural relationships, sometimes there's a huge communication gap there with this is how I say this and this is how I say this, and they're trying to express themselves. And yeah, I've had a lot of friends even ask me like, what does that mean? So this is great that you're sharing that. Thank you.
yeah, well, those words that you use, me encantas. If I say that to, like I said it to my wife, me encantas, there is not such a thing in English because it will not make sense, or So
Oh,
those are things, and this is kind of like what some of in the American in English words will say. Me encantas is kind of like what's the word I'm trying to look for? I was going to say probably, but no. It it comes in Spanish, cursi. So it's kind of like you are too much. You're trying to add too much to the feelings, And culturally, uh, I will say most Anglos will not express that, because their patriarchy. It's kind of like saying "I love you" and that's a lot, and it should be enough. Versus Latinos, we try to use all these other romantic words that come from Latin that it's more deeper to or on in a way uh, is it deeper to express yourself with the other
hmm
person. So
hmm. So when the tone of voice you're using when you use encantar for your wife, for example, is very different than how I understand the word and how I've used it, because I think of like, and I guess we could share with the audience what that actually means. So like it's when I've used it before, I would use it with a very forceful voice, like me encanta viajar, or like me encanta las sonrisas. I love but sonrisas, smile. So, okay, I'm
right.
thinking of something else. Like I try to say it, for example, like, or me encanta chocolate. So it's like I have this like huge, strong feeling towards it, but you said it with this very calm voice, which is very different, even just being in Spain with the way people talk with each other in this very loud type of way. And there's other times I've heard Spanish in a very quiet, calm, relaxed, clear, muy claro, like very clear way.
Mhm.
And so I think there are many ways to express yourself. And I guess we're getting onto a different topic here with words that may not be expressed, and maybe even with your intonation of your voice or the passion that you use when you say it. And sometimes I find like I use like está llena, like the hands. There isn't like it's like, oh, this club is really full. Great. Like when I say it like this, it has like a lot more meaning to me, and I have a more challenging time expressing myself in English sometimes when I've seen things expressed in another language that are very like super fuerte, for example. They have a lot of passion in how they're expressed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, totally agree. I will say that and depending on the conversation and the tone, for me, I analyze that a lot
Mm,
because sometimes that can be a derogative or kind of like mean too, and depending on the tone, and it can be like sarcastic, and that's something that personally analyze a lot, how people might say something to me. So then I focus on that because
mhm.
sometimes the word might not mean a lot, or it might not be hurtful, but the tone is hurtful. So I think, and that's where a lot of misunderstandings comes off across, and people don't get it. Some people don't get it, but yeah, that's a really interesting topic. and that we can discuss in that area.
Yeah, it kind of leads me to this conversation about feelings. And you had mentioned that patriarchy, and then also that your primary role model was your mother.
Yes,
And I'm curious if you'd like to go that direction now.
sure. Well, the reason I say that is because it's not that. First of all, let me correct that. My dad is it's a in his way, he's a great human being. He's a good dad. He was a good dad, um, like many others, and he didn't know how probably to be an amazing dad. I don't believe no one is like to that level. There's some
Mhm,
of them. There's their exceptions, of course,
mhm,
but to his knowledge, and he did the best he could. Now, back then, we're talking about 30 years ago. For a person growing up and not having much education, and what I mean education is by schooling,
mhm,
like uh, he probably tried to really um, taught us what he learned from mom and dad. But
mhm,
when
mhm,
the lack of education, again, schooling from them is also a lack of education, then he didn't know much any better. So
mhm,
he just taught us what he thought it was right for him.
mhm,
And I
mhm,
think that's what many misunderstanding also comes with parenting and fathers, and not understanding your parents.
mhm.
And instead of that, we try to judge them. So now going back into my point, that's why I just want to explain that and
Yeah, thank you.
put that in context, because it's important to me. Then from that, my mom became my role model because, well, she is she's a nurse, and she has more education than my dad did, and she just worked so hard. And I could see that she, in her mind, was like she never gave up. She was working her full-time job. She was selling whatever she had on mind. She was selling used clothing. She was helping my aunts to kind of clean their houses in order to make more money, because I came from a family of 9, so I'm the second to last. So we were very many. So
Mhm.
um, very many. We are
You were the
many.
old, yeah, you were the
Uh,
eighth. Okay.
yeah. So then from that, my mom just worked so hard and always guided us and always taught us how to be like, have a clean house, how to have organized life, and how to like try to look for a better life, to not give
Mhm,
up, not feel just settle with what you have, but look for more. And
mm,
that's why my mom is my role model. In that end, she helped me also to express myself, and one of those is my feelings.
okay.
Therefore, um, I'm able to right now, if I have a feeling, I'm able to just say it, with a respectful way, and liberate this feeling with um, with the person that I'm having this issue. Also
Mhm.
to understand that it's uh, not a not pay attention to. Also, if the person you don't think is so important in your life, if it's someone at work and did something to you, just let it be, and
Mm,
not find problems, or where probably you are wrong assuming. So she helped me to not assume, uh, and to that I still am working on that, because I think that's a human being
yeah.
problem that we have to work on.
Yeah.
That's another um, topic that we can talk. But anywho, so that's something that I really enjoyed. And if I see a movie where it's like a romantic movie and it's a sad ending, I'll cry. And I don't care if it can be 10 men around it. I don't feel like it's shameful to me. But
Okay.
that's because of my mom taught me that. My mom
Ah,
pushed me to get those feelings out,
yeah.
regardless, because it's important for her that male were able to cry, versus I have seen cousins or friends that they're not in their minds, they can't. But that's
Mhm,
because the role model in the house probably was the dad,
mm,
and and that patriarchy stays on that, and we came from that mentality of like, men don't cry,
mhm,
or men
mhm.
don't wear pink, or only
Yeah, you
singers
got
are, yeah, only
that.
singers should be a male, and that I mean, that's another word that, going back to the other point, is like machismo. It's a word that is
Yes.
it's kind of hard to translate in English, but
Yeah.
best way is kind of will say that is a patriarchy. It's been taught over and over and over, and it becomes a culture.
I agree. And creo que tenemos machismo aquí en ese país. I think we have machismo here in many different ways I just think in not modern thinking. The world is changing. The children's schools are changing. We're talking about pronouns and things like that. And so the kids are coming in teaching the parents and the grandparents at this point that the world is different now. And we really have to catch up and be open to everything that's out there. And so I think the old way of thinking may no longer, in my opinion, as we ascend and evolve energetically, and we all get more, reach closer to enlightenment here. Sometimes it's hard to express ourselves, and we have a couple languages going here. I understand. We can go into that topic next. That it's just going to be more less and less accepted, I think, as time goes on. And I'm curious for you, we didn't discuss this prior, so it's a kind of a curveball question. Based on your life experience, and you mentioned maybe these friends or cousins of yours that are unable to cry because maybe the father was the role model, and maybe that's not always the case, but it very much could be. How would you see doing it differently if you had a son?
Well, I think that's a really hard question. First of all,
Yeah.
I don't have kids yet.
Right.
I will use a saying that my mom used to say: "You don't know what is to educate a son until you have a son
Oh.
or children." So it's for
Ooh.
me. It's just kind of like when you go to see the uh, 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 fighting match,
Yeah.
and it's a lot easier to see it from the outside than being on the ring,
Oh,
because that's totally different. That
yeah.
really changes the perspective. Being in the ring versus being in the sittings out around the ring, it's totally different. So
Yeah.
I don't feel like comfortable answering that into that.
Sure.
It's because then it will be controversial. It's like me saying
Yeah.
something in the future that I don't know yet, even
Yeah.
with my. But all I can say that is with that, just we'll try to give you a little bit of hint on that. I will have said that I help babysit my nieces and nephews since they were very little,
Cool.
and my side with them, it's I will say like I'm really lovely with them. At the same time, I'm really strict.
Firm boundaries, I hear you're saying. Flexibility within boundaries. So maybe the boundaries are very clear. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's for me, it becomes black and white in that end, and this
Mm,
is what I have experienced with my nephews. But
mm,
we can go back again. This is very subjective because they're not mine. At one point in life, they had been gone of my life, and their mom and dad they have created, and I believe they tried to provide them the best they could to their knowledge in education for them.
mhm.
But it's not the same. That's all I can tell you at this moment.
I like what you said. Thank you for taking the curveball question either way. And you brought up a fantastic metaphor that's a great segue into another topic. You talked about the fighting match or the boxing match or whatever in being in the ring versus being on the outside. And that brings up this topic of when people come to this country, how we can go in a couple of ways here. Some challenges that they face and their perspective of success and maybe the insecurities around the language because they're on the inside. So people might say, oh, XYZ on the outside. However, when they're coming in from their perspective, maybe they're not able, we already discussed, to express themselves verbally. And maybe even English is really, intimidating or overwhelming because they've just arrived. Um, and you had talked about what's their understanding of a good job. I went through a lot of topics there. Maybe you could just pick one.
Okay. So, well, the challenge is as being on the ring, and I mean that the metaphor that I use. Uh, Coming into the U.S., you'll find a lot of challenges that are not um, so fun. I will say it because especially like I came into the U.S. knowing I will say 10% of English, and what is that 10%? It's kind of like knowing what is your name, what is the bathroom, what time is it, may I have this, how old are you? I mean, just the basic of English, but it's also at the same time, it's not the same when you are listening to someone talk, like speaking to it versus when you are like talking to it. You know, when you, it's a lot easier to say things, but when you hear someone and they go fast, you're like, what?
Yeah.
It's like if you pay attention, when every single time that I listen into like Italian or French, I try to pay attention, but it's still, since I don't speak it, it's just gone. Or Portuguese,
Yeah.
too. Like Portuguese, I'll catch 40%, but then the 60% is kind of like, what?
Depending on el acento también.
Yeah,
The accent can really make a difference. Yeah.
exactly. So that takes a whole thing. Now from that, and then the challenges that most people face coming into that, what's success, and the challenges to get that success. Well, it's defining for each person is might be different, but for some of them, they might be like having something, so having some food to eat. For them, it's kind of like their success, and as long
Yes.
as they have a job, that's their success. For some others is to buy a new car and be able to have that brand new car, you know. So it really depends on what are your priorities in life, and that what is what defines for each person their success. Because even for Americans, for some of them, having a they might live in an apartment and they're not looking for a house, but their success is having a brand new car, you know.
Mhm.
For Latinos is having, I will say, the need of having money to provide to their families.
Mhm.
For them, once they have it, I think that's their success.
Mhm.
You know, that's I believe for some of them, and this is we're talking about people who came uh, regardless of their condition in the US to find a job, to find the American dream. But the American dream, it becomes really also very vague in a way, because for what can be my American dream for me might not be for you. And that changes the whole perspective.
Mhm.
So, and that's why I said for some people having the money to be able to provide for their families, that's probably their success. For some others is to buy a car. For some others to buy a house, or buy a house in their home country, build it, and they're
Mm.
planning to go back, you know. So that's basically
Yes.
their success.
That's a
Put it this,
common one too. Yes.
yeah,
The
you know,
success. Yeah.
create your own business that
Oh.
in your hometown, because that way you're going to be able to provide for your, I don't know, your mom, your wife, I mean, whomever you left behind in your home country. So
Mm.
that's what I will say, that it's a success within all that.
Yeah.
And I hope I didn't miss the other question.
No, but I'm just something I can just feel this feeling of sadness when you use the words left behind. And we didn't really talk about that yet. And I think a lot of people come here and they do leave behind their home, their family, their extended family, everything they know. And I'm curious about this feeling of either sadness, loss, or loneliness. Maybe like a lot of, yeah, like a, I don't know, not like the weight of the world is on their shoulders, but like they're kind of, there's this other concept. You come here and you don't have any family. And so you meet friends and they become your family if you don't have any. It sounds like you do. So that may not be something that you really think about. I'm sitting in my front window. I have neighbors and male people walking by. So that's why I'm waving.
You know, that's a really interesting topic. Now we're going to take a curveball in there.
Sure. Great. That's a
Coming
big one.
into, even though that I have family, I
Mm-hmm.
still have a lot of family that I left behind. A
Mm.
lot of cousins, they were my brothers and sisters. They were about my age. We grew up because within my family, I was really close to my mom's side family. So
Okay.
my cousins, we will have sleepovers. We will be
Mm.
hanging out. I will say it out of the month, 20 days. So
Wow.
we
Okay,
were
a lot.
very close. We were very close.
Mm-hmm.
And that living that and changing that. Now that I go back and I try to get that connection, I'm trying to find that connection again. It's not there because we grew apart, and each of us, we move into a different direction
Mm.
for, because that's life too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not,
Aged. Yes.
but that connection that we had is kind of like also at one point in time you become a stranger for some of them, and they become
Yes.
strangers for some of, for me, some of them too.
Yes.
You know, it's because why you are growing up in a different world, different culture, different way of thinking, that what you at one point makes you be together and like matching thoughts and so on,
Yeah.
not anymore is there. That is not anymore. So what happens is that those thoughts have changed. It's because that's part of our evolution, you know, growing,
Yeah.
thinking, and everyone takes their own way.
Hmm.
So imagine that if for a person who left their kids when they were 5 and they tried to go back and they're already 15,
Oh,
what kind of connection is a father or the mother you can have with their kids?
right.
How they will see you, if they will see you as a mom, or they just because they know that you are the father, they will respect you, but it's not going to be that same,
No.
you know, it's those kind of things that are, I heard about, I have a friend who left her youngest daughter when she was 5. Now she's 22,
Mm,
and she just recently went back to Mexico.
mm,
And she's telling me that she's having a lot of problems because she's not able to connect with her.
yeah.
Why? Because she was 5 years old when she left. And now that the reason she went back is because until she was her goal was to pay their college.
Okay.
So they all have careers. I
Okay.
think her older son is engineer. Her younger daughter is, I think she has a business administration degree. So once she was done, she was like, okay, I'm done. I already have some money there. So I want to go back. And then she went back and that connection is not there. And she's now like, well, now what am I doing here? I kind of feel like I'm in a foreign country, in my country, with my family, and I want to go back because I don't match. I don't my way how I think, the way how I act, how I express myself is not fitting in. Now I
Yes.
feel like I want to go back to the States because that's what I feel like I fit in.
Reverse culture shock is what you're speaking of.
Yeah,
Feeling foreign in your own family. I mean, I think a lot of us can say we feel that way, you
yeah,
know?
yes.
Yeah. I have something to share around that because I moved from Texas to Minnesota and I didn't physically see my dad for 9, 10 years from like 11 to 21 about. And we stayed in great touch. He was not my disciplinarian by any means, it was through music. I got a mixed CD, first mixed tapes in the 90s, weekly, then CDs. Then we went on to email and we talked on the phone. We still can talk on the phone 2, 3, 4. I mean, it's not that long these days, but there's so our connection stayed very strong. And to this day, when I'm going through things, my dad will just send me an email, generally of a music video or some sort of solar flare or something scientific. And the music videos, especially, and you talked about music, it's like, are you like, I'll look at the minute that the email was sent and I'm thinking like, are you telepathic? Because you're feeling what I'm feeling and you're thinking what I'm thinking and in the moment. And it's very interesting. It's almost like channeling, like he's a channel. And with certain friends of mine, another friend that really likes music, it was like, I think I'm here just to channel between you and my dad with music, and very interesting over the years. So I think there are ways to connect and it does change that parental role. And I think with parents, and this is another subject we didn't go down, you really define your, and maybe with you and your mother, prior to your marriage, this relationship with the opposite sex parent, your dynamic between the two of them and how they treat you and your communication level. And you mentioned expressing emotion. And I'm even finding with my son is that there's a lot of, I'm saying like, yay, you're crying. You even said, I feel sad today. I mean, or I need a hug. That has been for us a really big progression of expressing emotion. And I'm over here cheering that like you're able to name an emotion. I have a hard time naming emotions. I don't have the vocabulary around how many there are.
Yeah, well, a lot of them.
Let's write a list for the audience to choose from.
Yeah, but I will say that oof, it's just that it's a lot. I can tell you a lot on that end. I can tell you
Okay.
that completely. Well, for me, expressing that, like I'm sad. Let's start from there.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, I remember the first time I was able to cry I think was like 7 years old,
Good. Okay.
and the reason that I I acknowledge that feeling because it was an argumentation. Mom and dad were arguing, and I heard that my dad was really offensive towards my mom. And then that for me is kind of like I was able to acknowledge that that was not okay. And,
Ah,
you know, and
yes.
but it was hurting me. Like I've started to develop that. First of all, anger against my dad
Yeah, I was gonna ask that. Okay.
and feelings, you know,
Mhm,
and then from that, let's say that everything went peacefully and move on.
mhm.
Then after that, it took like quite a few years, you know, until I was able to sit and sit down with my dad and said, look, I think what you did that time, and you probably don't remember, that hurt my feelings. And for me, it's been all these years that I haven't been able to. But I think if I don't tell you, I'm gonna go crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Good.
And once it pout, I mean, I felt like 20 pounds of sandbags were out of my bag,
Oh,
you know.
yes. This is
But
yes, go ahead.
I will say, since I was very little, I've always been able to kind of like be direct
Mm,
because that's how my mom is too.
okay.
So let's follow the the rope here.
Okay.
Mostly, what I will say is I will say that it leads to my mom
Interesting.
because she was like that. She was really straightforward,
Mm,
and for me, I was able to kind of like. I think parents are like a mirror, you know. They reflect everything they do, your actions. Even if you don't say much, your actions, your kids copy it, and we
yes.
copy it unconsciously. It's not like
Yes.
we think and wake up and I'm like, oh, my mom is doing that, I'm gonna do that. No, it's just it's it's so crazy. So I think I was able to get that from my mom. And
Mm,
my dad, he didn't know what to say. At the same time,
really?
yeah, and at the same time, I think I never I never told him that to find an answer,
Yeah.
nor to find forgiveness or
Okay.
yeah, you know,
Just
from
kept
him.
it.
I think for me it was just kind of like I was focused on mind healing.
Oh, yay.
You know, I never actually yes, I wasn't looking for an apology from my dad.
I see. Okay.
Why? Because it's not for me to judge.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I think the biggest problem as a human beings we commit a lot into that. So I'll start from that and from there I think it developed the curve of moving forward and be able to kind of let things out as you go.
So are you saying that was the beginning of you being able to confront and express yourself in your healing
Exactly.
journey?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy for you that you were able to do that.
Yeah, but that was I mean that was probably like 13, 14, I will say. And
Okay.
then with my mom, with her things, because my mom was really strict,
Mm,
I was able to do that like 2 years later, I believe. And once
okay.
I did that, I was, I think, able to guide myself on what I wanted to do and have a target
Okay.
of who I wanted to be. So, and
Yeah.
I've been
Oh.
working and following that target, and it's never been out of my mind. You know, I always have a target there, who I
Uh-huh.
want to be,
Hmm.
and I'm always overthinking of like what I'm saying, did I say it, if it makes sense, if it my message is also matched my thinking, because sometimes what I think and what it comes out of my mouth doesn't match, and I think that's
Hmm.
when we call it that you're not logical, you know,
Mm.
or you're not coherent, you know. So
Mm.
that's
Go ahead.
I always focus and I try to target towards that direction.
Hmm. So what I'm hearing you say is that sometimes what comes out of your mouth is not what you're thinking, and then when do you notice it? When you've said it and you're thinking like that's not what I meant, or where is the
Well, I'm always really trying to be aware of that, but
okay?
there is times where this happens a lot in relationships. Think about
Okay.
this. How many times have you think that you said something to the person that you love, like a simple thing? Oh, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna go to plan A, And then after that, we're going to go to plan C. But then suddenly in your mind, you thought you said it, we're going to just go to plan C. And then the question is like, well, you said that you were going to go, we're going to go plan A first and plan B. What happened? What is the gap in between that?
Oh,
And you're like, well, I thought you thought that you told me that, but you never did, and that's what we don't have that coherence very clear
yeah.
into our communication. And that's one of the things that we struggle. Also, our active skills of listening. Also sometimes we listen what we want to hear,
Yeah.
not what actually is telling us. So
Yeah.
I have a friend who he's dating a girlfriend, or he calls her his girlfriend, but he doesn't have no interaction with her, and every single time he's trying to get close to her, she's like, oh no, I feel tired or anything. And I'm like, well, their actions is telling you that she probably is not into you anymore, and you still having that. And he's like, well, but probably she hasn't said that anything to me. I'm like, well, she doesn't have to tell you, her actions are telling you. So
Mhm.
those are the things that I probably jump a little bit
No, I'm
all
just
over,
like
but
deciphering. No, I think
but
it's good.
but at the same time, it's just kind of like going back to be coherent on what you think and what I said, it matches, and my
Yeah.
actions matches for what I said.
Yeah. Okay. May I share something? I have a couple things that came up as
Yeah.
you were speaking. First of all, in yoga teacher training, my roommate from college, Taryn, was my yoga teacher trainer in Costa Rica. And she said, and related to the chakras, that when the head and the heart are not in alignment, then you don't speak your truth. And so you're speaking maybe from your head, but it's really not from your heart. And so, what I've been working on through the whole healing journey is showing up as my full self every time in every interaction versus mask, mask, mask. I'm this person. And then you get a little confused like, wait, who am I really? I was that person in that scenario. I'm that, and I'm really coming into like fully being who I am in every interaction. However, when doing trauma work, which is what I'm working on now with people, is healing their trauma, is when my coach talks about looking through a trauma lens, and you're speaking of this friend of yours and the relationship and the actions don't match the words, for example, you can think of that multiple ways. Sometimes I'll romanticize things, think like, wow, this thing in my life or this person in my life is like so great. And because I just think they're so great. And then I'm like, wait, but the facts are like, they never show up ever. Like they're not on time, whatever. That's just a little dramatic. However, then I realize like, okay, so that's one way. That's not through the trauma lens. That's just like maybe thinking something is so great. And maybe this is related to your friend, but really the facts are saying, and the actions are, or the actions are not matching the words, which is actually the first thing a psychologist told me right when I was separating from my ex-husband and maybe considering dating in the future someday. She just said, make sure you come see me and make sure the actions match the words. And I never forgot that. However, on the flip side, when you're looking at the world through a trauma lens, for example, you think like, oh my gosh, I'm so worried. I'm late. I didn't say that correctly. People don't understand me. I'm not good enough. And then when you look at the facts, it's like, wait, they just, said I was the top person in my company. And this person just complimented me on what a great communicator I am. Ah, okay. Now I can relax a little bit and realize what I'm thinking and what reality is are not in alignment. But reality is actually really great. And sometimes doing that can help you realize, like, oh, I'm just getting worried or overthinking or looking at my new reality through my old experience, which maybe is not realistic or relevant anymore. Go ahead. It looks like you want to say something.
No, no, no. I just wanted to say that I totally agree. I think that your alignment, it's it has to be there, because otherwise, like you said, it doesn't come from the heart. And also what your psychologist said, they have to match, because if they
Yeah.
don't match, then you're not making any sense.
Right. Yes. Yes. Oh, from your own perspective, if your words match your own actions, you're saying.
And there's another saying that I really love, and that it says, your actions talk louder than your words.
Yes. Yes.
you
Yes.
know and that's something that I also focus a lot, and that's why I said that I always have the target, but my target is to be there. That's basically my
Yeah.
target. At one point, like any other human being, I was finding materialism, because that's most of the marketing that I have gotten, and that's what we grew up with, this American dream, you know,
Mm.
becoming so materialistic that at one point in
Oh,
life, it once you are starting to mature, you realize that it's not your priority anymore. But
yeah.
for younger kids, with all this, what we watch or all these shows that are on TVs, they promote that. So they want that. They want to chase that.
Yeah.
It becomes unhealthy. So,
Yes.
and then that's where we lose that not matching, because we're trying to be someone else. We're not ourselves.
You know, this is related to one of the topics that I have been interviewing people for regarding flesh. And a lot of response or perspective on this has come from chasing the American dream, which actually becomes someone else's dream and not yours. I thank you for sharing. I'd actually like you to go on to this concept of freedom, how you define freedom, because you got a lot of good things to say on that.
Well, I will put my subjective definition of freedom.
Okay,
I'm
great.
gonna emphasize it, subjective. Okay, my subjective definition. My freedom for me, it's the one that I'm able to, regardless of who I am and how I act, I'm able to express.
Mm,
However, I don't truly believe that we believe in that freedom, because there's many entities that do not let you be free. One of them is the government. One of them is the religion.
mm,
Um, another one is society as a whole.
mhm.
Those three are the ones that, if you really think about it, if you really want to be free, and let's put it this way, a person who considers themselves bisexual,
Mhm.
religiously, the people from religion, I will say not all of them, because I don't know all of them, but most of them will not accept it. They will
Mm,
say that's not in God's eyes.
right.
So, governmental, if they try to accept it, it's because they're trying to be politically correct, but also they're going a lot of it what the religion is telling them to do too, because they're connected. And in society, they create this connection again to government and religion, that then they create these prejudices against these kind of people. And
Mhm,
then,
mhm.
so is these people free? No.
Mm.
They're basically, it's kind of like the movie of, I forget the name of the movie, but it's like the ones that they have like stamp on the letter A, and they meant they were like witches, and that was bad, and all this kind of thing. So I don't remember the name of the movie anymore, but it's kind of like that. They put in a stigma, and they put, like, we call it a cross on you, and once they have that cross on you, a lot of people will judge you, and you're not able to be free. Now that's in one part of that definition of freedom. Now the other freedom is what most people say. Well, I'm able to speak up. I have my right um, uh, to speak myself, whatever I want to.
Mhm, mhm.
But nowadays, really, can you do whatever you say? Because if you said that, let's bring one topic. If you are pro-Trump, people who's against Trump, they're gonna prejudge you. The
Mhm,
people who are pro-Trump, they're gonna support you. So
mm.
it became this black and white
Divided, yes.
division. And then are you really free then? That's when we talk and say, are you really free?
Mm.
No. And that's when political views, and we talk about in the other side, the religious side, and now in the and society, as a society, um, we have we have developed so many stigmas, because if a woman is wearing a cleavage, and then it becomes judged because of her cleavage, and then a lot of things has become sexual, but the sexual has become negative. At the same time, when we all know that we are,
Interesante, ¿no?
yep, we are
Mhm.
human beings. We're part of we're we live in an animal kingdom, and we're animals too in a certain way, you know.
Tenemos energía para expresar, creatividad, todo eso, en
E-
cualquier manera.
Exactly. So that is what it's going on, and so
Ujú.
freedom, it goes into a lot of spectrums and a lot of topics that we're not able to express. And
Yeah.
I believe that yes, we have a freedom to go out. we have a freedom to, uh, we're not going to be like China, but in a way we're becoming just, it's just that we have created this narrative of like, no, we live in a free country where our rights are respected, and then we see a lot of things that are not that how they say it, but it's that narrative is what most people buy. And also there's another uh, analogy that I heard from a philosopher that it says that marketing, it's let me see if I can translate it well, because I heard it in Spanish, but
Dilo en
marketing,
español.
um, let me see if I can try it in English and then
Está
I'll say it in
bien.
Spanish.
Yeah.
Marketing is the most expensive, it tries to provide you the biggest reward, but at the end of the day, it gives you very little reward. It
Mm.
creates this uh, cloud of dreams, but
Oh,
the actual gain or the actual reward you get from that is very little. And it's truth, because just think about
yeah.
it. Think about if someone says, "Oh, I want the iPhone, the new iPhone," and in their mind it creates this marketing, and they create these marketing campaigns and everything.
Yep.
But once you get it, you're kind of like, what happened? I thought that I had that, like, this was going to be, it was going to change my mind. It was going to change my world. It was going to rock me.
Yep.
But no, it's not there. And then you're trying to chase that again with a different item and with a different thing. So, and that's why freedom goes in there, because every single time you're trying to chase that freedom doesn't get rewarded, because you are becoming not free. You're becoming a slave of the system.
Yes, I am laughing and I want to interrupt you here, and I usually don't. However, you just had some lines to a song right there. It was going to change my world. It was, no, it was going to change my mind. It was going to change my world. It was going to rock me. I love that. That was cool. I think that's great. And I do think, law of attraction, if you ever listen to Abraham Hicks, it really talks about exactly what you're saying. So it's even having the thought of wanting something. I want a boat. I'm just going to think about having a boat and how great it's going to be to have that boat, whatever that gets for you, like popularity, water, freedom, whatever you think. And then by the time you've already thought about having that boat for a couple of hours or minutes, whatever, you're like, okay, now I want a yacht. And then it's like you think you want something better. And so the whole premise behind that is to like think the better feeling thought, the better feeling thought, the better feeling thought. And then you start living with this mentality like you already have it. Like I already have that iPhone. My life is so great. And then the things start coming. So that's a whole nother topic for another time. However, you're completely right about that when it comes to the marketing. And that just really talks about how the tangible items sometimes can be, I don't want to say a complete disappointment. It really comes back to, I think, what your values are and what truly does make you happy. And sometimes that's a simple mentality shift, that's it.
Yeah, but on that end, um, I think I never answered your question in what's freedom. In a way, I
Oh,
did,
yeah.
but everything that I mentioned to you is just think about if we are totally free. And in my perspective, is we're not completely free. We are some way free. But the day that we're gonna be free is the day that you stop judging, the day that you are criticizing others, the way that you focus on yourself, and the way you provide good feelings and vibe to other people. I think that's when you're starting to be free. Your freedom becomes it comes from inner you to out. And it seems like we're trying to chase that freedom when we create our own uh, caves and become slaves of our own dreams. And that's why our freedom is never there.
So it's self-imposed, you're saying.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Solution. That will be the end of our show here today. Is you
Yeah.
talked about vibe. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I don't have a solution for that, but I think that
No.
was what I think on that.
Yeah, and I think it's really, you discussed earlier prior to the show about your vibe is the energy, what represents you, and you also discussed about how your energy that you're emanating essentially from your aura to others and how they feel around you really tells your insecurities, your problems, and your traumas. And I really thought that was a very profound statement. And I think you might see something that others subconsciously might feel, and they may not always be able to define or catch on to. And I'm curious how you got to this point of being able to recognize that in others.
Well, I also been into therapy,
Good.
and the reason I was able to find it is because, as my therapist says, if we trying to chase things that they're not there and that we know they're not going to satisfy us, but we still trying to find it is because we're looking for validation,
Oh, yeah.
validation and acceptance.
Yeah.
So why are we trying to chase all these kind of things of like luxury vehicles, luxury lifestyle and all that? Is because we
Yes.
just want to be validated. We are important to someone else. When the real things that you should really focus, you are important to your mom and dad, regardless of if you have clothing from Goodwill and use pair of tennis shoes, or if you are wearing Dolce and Gabbana, and I'm sorry for the extra commercial, uh, really expensive
It's okay.
clothing,
Uh-huh.
it really doesn't matter. I think your brand is, what are we talking about? Like what I said earlier, your vibe, expressing everything with love towards others, respecting others, listening to others, paying attention to others on the way of like if they're talking to you, and focus on yourself instead of focusing on others. I think that's what we should aim, all of us. But we put a lot of dreams and a lot of thoughts of ourselves, and when we are not able to chase that, then it becomes that self. Uh, I think here culturally, one thing that I notice is we become so individualistic instead
Oh,
of
yeah.
becoming a team.
Yes.
And how many times we hear, oh, as a team, how many movies we have watched of like a team makes it work. Well,
Mm.
here it's if like my neighbor is crossing my or cutting a little bit more of my grass, with that becomes a problem.
I
You
know,
know,
right? You'd be like, thanks for cutting my grass.
if the neighbor has a dog and is barking all day, then it become a problem. It's those
Mm.
kind of things that we're starting to kind of like create our own aura instead of kind of like let
Mhm.
it be.
Yeah.
Go with your flow. Go with what you should focus. And trying to develop great connections with
Yes.
people. And I think that's what we should aim at, but we're not doing it.
Well, may I respond to that? Because I have three things to say, I
Oh,
think, maybe only two. So, COVID has really, and energetically, as the world is ascending, the collective is becoming required to talk to your neighbors and find out who your inner circle is with COVID. It forced us all to be in our homes and maybe find out who might live next door because maybe we need to borrow their lawnmower. And what I've seen over time is more people, it started with the internal family, and then it went out to become, you need to know the people that are in your town, and it also connected us internationally. So that's a kind of a broad answer to your question. However, I truly believe that it is the people that are, my next door neighbors are the ones that I'd like to get to know, because that's what really makes a community, is the people around you. But what you said is very true. You're mad at your neighbor for mowing your lawn a little bit extra. Oh, you went over the line, that would have been something you're like, thank you so much. However, do you want something to say something?
no, 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 no. I'm listening to you.
You talked about being validated about your family, and what you're really speaking to, and I just want to show a little visual for this really quick. Um, is all of this is root chakra stuff we've talked about today. And the root chakra lies right here at the tailbone, and it's red. And this is food, what, and this is talking about success and coming to this country and looking at the self. Food, water, shelter, unconditional love, safety, security, abundance, money. All of it has to do with starting there. And when you talk about success, and a lot of the success you discussed was really about paying rent, having enough money to buy food and pay for your family, maybe building a home in your home country. And you didn't discuss, actually, like, as you rise up the chakras, all of these other things. You didn't talk about, getting your PhD. You did talk about starting your own business. However, it really starts with those basics. And in a lot of healing work, it starts with that first chakra. And so it's, do we feel safe in our homes? Do we actually feel unconditional love from our parents? And then from that, are we able to express ourselves verbally with our emotions? So I think there's a lot of what you shared today that's all related to the first chakra work, which I've still been working on for many years
Whoa, that's
now.
well. I think that's the core of everything. I personally
Mm,
believe that that's the core of everything. If you're not going to reach success just because. And some people might be lucky. There's some exceptions, like everything in life. Like there is not many Michael Jordans, as I know it. There is not many Isaac Newtons that I know it. I mean, it's been, how long has it been? And
Yeah.
we have a few of those once so often. But it, the core of having that starting from within and out,
Mm.
it's what it's should be our goal. Now most people start from the outside to the inside, and that doesn't work.
You're right. And that's when you talk about validation. And then you realize I can't find happiness on the outside. Ultimately, I have to find it on the inside. And no matter what environment I'm in, I'm still whole and I'm happy.
Yes, and the reason I went to my therapist, let me just discuss
Yeah.
that, is just I was going through college, and
Mhm.
I had a calculus class,
Ooh.
and I thought that it was going to be really hard, and I was already assuming, first of all, that
Um,
I wasn't going to be able to make it. Second of all, I was never been validated as like the smartest kid in my family, so that's another thing that it was kind of
yeah.
pulling me behind it. But then. Um, a lot of pressure of I need to have an A because this is a really expensive college. It's gonna get paid for it. I need to pass this regardless, and I need to
Pressure.
pass it like pressure. So I put a lot of these things in my mind, and
Mm.
in order to be able to get rid of those, I knew what to do. So I'd reach out to uh, a therapist, and then we start
Good.
working on that. And I passed with the B, and which is awesome. And
Flying colors.
after that, it's just kind of like, okay, good. And from that I learned that it's a lot of the things are here, and you
Mm.
put your own bars in front of you, and no one else does it for you but ourselves. So from that, I learned that I need to validate myself. I need to love
Mm.
myself, and I need to
Oh,
work on myself in order
yeah.
to reach success. That's what the topic we started.
Okay.
And success is it's for me being able to obtain goals that I put in the short term and in the long term. That's
Mm.
success. And one of
Mhm.
them for me was to finish my college degree in here in the U.S. and in lab with a language that it's not my first language, and which is twice as hard. I mean, you went to Spain, and you understand me how
Oh,
hard it
yeah.
would have.
I got majority of the lecture. I think about the big picture, not the detalles.
So that's the thing. So that was my definition of success. For me, success is putting goals yourself short and long term, and you're being able to obtain them and work towards them. That's success.
Thank you for answering that. And I really think if accomplishing, and maybe you can answer this and we'll have a wrap for the day. We're almost at an hour here. Is as you accomplish those short term goals, it probably builds confidence to get to the long term goals. Say, hey, I did that. Like, it's not that I can't do the next one. Look, I did do that. And that must feel really empowering.
Yes. And another thing also that I learned is that never feel comfortable from where you at. Let's put it
Oh,
this way: if you feel that you're already making a good money, and
uh-huh.
that's what it is, and you want to stay there, that's never that's not recommended. And the reason why it's not recommended, because if you're not challenge yourself and you're not moved to a different where you want to keep growing, and not
Yeah.
necessarily has to be more money, it has to be
Yeah.
just you have to keep growing in order
Yeah.
for us to keep learning and defining ourselves. We
Hmm.
have to keep moving forward and moving into areas that are probably are our weaknesses. But that way
Yeah.
is how we're going to learn and how we're going to uh, succeed on many other areas that we thought that we were not good at. And that's the main thing. And that's how I'm trying to do this. Right now, I'm working in the corporate world where I thought that I was just like, oh my gosh, English is my second language. Oh, I have to write all day. Beginning, it was just kind of like, what am I going to do? It's going to be hard. And
Yeah.
look, now it's almost been a year, and I'm doing, I would say I'm not
Felicidades.
excellent, but I'm doing well, I
Yeah.
can't complain. And it's not that hard. It's mostly
Mm.
our own challenges. And, and that's why I always recommend to our audience to never feel comfortable where they are. Always move and find places where it's going to really challenge you, because that's how you're going to learn, and that's how you're going to change too.
You are quite the motivational speaker, Oz.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much for being here today. What an honor and a joy. And we got a lot of great topics in today. And if there's any farewell comments you'd like to say, maybe how people can find you, I'll tag you on social media here
Yeah,
and
well,
wrap.
you can tag me in social media if anyone has any thought or want to share their inputs or feedback. I'll be happy to listen to you, and respectfully, I will respond to you. Um, Again, it was a pleasure for me to be having this conversation with you. Thank you, Lindsay. I follow you. I'm a big follower, and also I'm a big fan of yours. One of the reasons I'm a big follower is because you are a really strong, independent woman who is, you're having a, you, I can see your goal and you're working so hard to get to that goal. And I can tell that you share that with your, all the things. And for me, that's something that it's really plausible. So kudos to
Oh,
you.
thank you. You know, it's funny you say that because my brother said something about, you're going through some stuff right now. And you know what I said? Thanks for the support. I feel invincible, independent, and inquisitive about life and what the big guy, I was hesitant to say guy, has in store. So the triple I. Thank you so much. That was a very nice compliment. I appreciate that.
No problem. Well, thank you, and have a good day.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.